Welcome to the Generic Tech Support YouTube channel, where typing skills aren't required. Like and subscribe for more content. Hey guys, welcome back to Mint. So in this video, which we're going to call part 4, is going to be a customization of themes. First, we're going to look at the stuff that comes out of the box in Linux Mint, and then we're going to talk about the things that you could download through the apt repository to get updated themes. And then maybe we'll touch base a little bit on customizations that you could do yourself if you really wanted to compile code, to create scripting, I guess, to modify the way that this looks, or even use ones that exist on like the Git repositories. But there's quite a bit that come out of the box that are pretty nice, pretty sharp. And I'm probably going to run through how to do the first one, and then maybe we'll just throw some screenshots in, or we'll do some changes real quick to look at a variety of different ones. This particular system has nothing else on it. This is the same system we ended on the last video, which basically was after we uninstalled everything on it. And the reason why we did that is because I don't want to create Linux systems on my VM server that are just enormous in size. Especially like, basically creating something that used to exist called an Ultimate Edition, which had everything on it, like every driver, update, piece of software, and everything else on it. But those were like 100 gigs in size. And at that point, 100 gig operating system it's a little much. So small footprints are usually faster running. So let's jump into this and take a look at some of the themes that come with this system. Okay, so in order to change the theme on Linux Mint, out of the box, for our out of the box configuration, we just have to go to the search here and type in theme. And there's themes. We're going to click on that. Okay, so the first thing we're going to see here in themes is the actual appearance box and style. Now, out of the box, this is what this should be configured as. However, I like dark, so I'm going to choose dark as the first thing I do, which is going to change the way this looks to the dark theme for the windows. And that's going to take effect for everything. So if we look here, now the background is black. If we go back to mixed, see the background is white. Go back to dark, you see how the background is dark. If we want everything to be light like Windows, we could just choose light, and it'll literally take everything and put it in almost like a Windows format where we get the white taskbar and white background and light colors of everything. If you work in a very bright environment where there's lots of lights, this might be easier to see. However, I usually work in dark rooms or holes where servers are, so I've gotten used to looking at dark backgrounds. Next option we're going to get here is a color. So we could choose different colors. So those are the desktop icons. And you'll see as we go through them. Now it's a solid color. The little tab on the top will match the folder. But if it's a split like this one here where we have orange and black, you're going to see orange looks like it's inside. You're going to have a red background and then like a gray front end to the actual folder structure. And you're going to notice at the top here we also have style. So we could change the style like to X, to L. And we will have to change how we want it to look again. But if we go to X, you notice how everything gets bubbly. So we go back to dark. You'll notice that we don't get that option. And that's because some of these styles are automatically defined as either mixed or light. They don't support the dark look. It's typically why I leave it on the lower one, which is the Y. So that way I could change it to the dark theme so I don't have to look at the bright colors. And then I usually try to keep the desktop background as dark as possible, but for this sake, I'll use the orange and the black. And that's basically your default out-of-the-box configuration for your folder. Now with that said, you do get advanced options. So if we go into the advanced settings, we get advanced options where we could change things like the pointer, for instance. Maybe we want to make it look more like Windows XP days. We choose that. So now it looks more like an XP pointer, right? Maybe we want to change the applications, right? So we could click this and we get all these different options for buttons. And this is going to be the stuff that's going to exist here, like on the top right-hand side here, the X button and whatnot. So if we go back in here, and maybe we want to make it red. So now we have a red button. You see that? Okay. So then we have icons. Choose icons. Now maybe we want to make the folders different. Now if I change the folder settings for the icons, then these icons up here will change. So maybe I want to make it, I don't know, maybe I want to make it purple. So you can see now that we have a purple difference in the folder structure. And we could go into desktop here. And now the desktop, this is going to be your start menu, your taskbar itself. And if we click on this, we get a variety of options in here. Generally speaking, I like the cinnamon one where I just click on that, and that gives me more of like the squared off box that almost looks like the days of Windows XP or even Windows 7 to some effect, but I actually get a taskbar, and I still get the show desktop button like I did in the Windows 10 days, Windows 8, and Windows 7, Windows XP, where you could show the desktop by clicking the little thing here. I think XP actually had a show desktop button over here. I can't remember off the top of my head, but for the rest of them, you had a little sliver on the end here to show the desktop. So that's why I like the cinnamon, but you could choose other things in here, like if you wanted to do dark with the purple, you get the dark more on the bottom. For me, to see the difference between the windows so they don't all blend in, I kind of like the lighter color on the taskbar. Okay, so that's customizations that are built in. What if we want to add themes? So up here on the taskbar, we could go to Add Remove. And right now, it's going to download 97 available themes that are out of the box for the configuration. So maybe I want it to look dark. All right, I want a dark theme. I could choose a dark theme in here out of any of the ones in here. So I have Windows 10 dark theme, so I can make it look like Windows 10. Or if I keep going here, I think there's actually a Windows 7 one in here. Yeah, so Windows 7 10 edition. So if I click on the download button here, it's going to install that particular theme pack. So if I scroll down, you'll see the little checkbox next to it now. Now, if I want to change to use that, all I got to do is go back to Themes, and I got to go down here to my desktop, and I'm going to see Windows 7 Tux Noir, and I'm going to click on that. And now I have a start menu that looks like Windows 7 with the orb. I'm sure you guys remember that. And I have a blacked out taskbar. So now I can go into icons, and I can look into icons, and if there's any customized icons that exist, they'll show up in there. If I go to Applications, under Buttons, if there's any customized buttons in here that are part of that package or that theme, it'll show, which there was. Hold on. There it is, Windows 7 Tux Noir. So if I click on that, that's what I get. If I go back in here, if there is a customized start, cursor or mouse button, mouse cursor rather, I would get it in here, which there isn't, but you would see that. So now if I click on Start, this is what it looks like. It's supposed to look somewhat like we would get in Windows 7, which, for a freebie one that comes with the system, it looks pretty good. There's other ones in here too. So if we go back to Add Remove and we go in here and remove like dark with maybe Windows, we could see in here that we get a couple different options. There's Windows 10 Basic, there's a Windows looking dock, there's Windows 10 Lite, there's a Cinnamon version. I believe that there is an XP. Yeah, so Mint XP. So if I click on this and download it, I could get an XP looking theme for this as well. So if I click on this, I'm going to look specifically in here. There it is, Mint XP. So we'll click on that, go to icons and look. I don't have anything, but if I go to Sand, that looks like the XP icons. If I go to Applications here, I have Mint XP. Now, in my experience, when you use the XP built-in customization here and you click on this, it causes the menus to get weird. So I'll click on it, but I don't think it works right. So I'm probably going to just go back to my Windows 7 configuration. My mouse pointer, again, leave it alone. And if I go back to simplified settings, I can actually change, if it's available, the dark theme. You can see in this one, because of the theme configuration, it's not. But now if I click on the Start button, it looks more like Windows XP looked, right? With the exception that I don't have a Start button itself. It still retains the original configuration. Now, there is Cinn XP, C-I-N-N XP, that was designed for version 17, which hasn't been ported to the latest version yet, but that doesn't mean that we can't try to make it work at some point. So let's go back in here now, back into our advanced settings. And let's look to see what else we have in here. So we could go in here, and I like dark themes, right? So I want something that's dark, generally. And, we could see all the different themes that exist. Now, it's probably difficult for you to see because it is small. I don't think, well, I guess making it bigger makes it a little bigger, but it doesn't really make it all that much bigger. I do like the darker themes in the system just because I typically work in dark offices, and having all the bright light in the background doesn't do good things for my eyeballs. But there's options in here to change whatever you want the theme to be. For the sake of this, maybe we'll change it. We'll try this. We'll do this C Black Remix version. That has 9 stars. Obviously, the more stars it has, usually the better the package is. So we'll try this Nocto. We'll go into themes. We'll go into desktop. Let's take a look at this one. See what this one looks like. We don't really have any customizations. I want to go back to something dark, so I'll go back to that. Take a look at this. It doesn't look like we have anything for the C Black Remix, but we do have the Adapta version there, so we'll click on that. I'm going to go back to a dark cursor. Perfect. Now let's take a look around and see what this looks like. So, yep, this is a little darker. This is more my style as far as a desktop would be concerned. But let's take a look, too, to see what the other one is, the Adapto itself, or whatever that name of that application thing was. So, again, you know, there's customizations. I do like that you get the green bar here to show the desktop. It makes it a little easier to see. And again, if we go in here, we could download other things as well. Now, if I get rid of dark, because if it doesn't define it as dark, and I just search for everything, and maybe we see what upgradable versions there are. So we have a C Blue version, which has 28. Let's install that one and take a look at that one as well. Now you notice once I put it in upgradable, the layout changed as far as it's no longer aligned by the number of, you know, thumbs up or stars. So, I mean, to search in here, you'd have to search to figure out specifically what you want versus, you know, what's available in an order to tell you how good the actual theme is. So now let's go in here and we change it. Let's go to C Blue. Let's take a look at this. Again, we're going to go dark. We could probably just leave it as the blue. It's fine. Take a look at this to see if we have any customizations. We don't. Personally, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to match my purple to my purple here and just go with that. Go into the cursor, see if there's anything. There's not. Go back down into Start, see if there's any customizations. There's not. So that's the C Blue. Now, we can modify. I do like the fact, actually, on this one that looks like the taskbar itself is 100% translucent. We can see, or transparent, rather. We can see 100% through it. I think maybe to see the difference a little better in the background, what we should do here is we should right-click on the desktop background and change the background. And you're going to see things that come out of the box built in. We also have the Wilma package in here based on the versioning we have currently installed. So let's change the background to something a little different. So that's called Blanket. It's dark. I figured it was referencing Blanket of Snow, but I actually think that might actually be a sheet with tears in it to look like snow. It's kind of neat, actually. So yeah, now we have a transparent taskbar, and as such, we can see 100% through it, which I don't know if that's good or bad, right? Because we can't, I mean, could right-click on it, and then right-click up here. We get two different menus, but you can't really tell that you're right-clicking on the taskbar because you can't see it. Okay, so I'm going to take you to a website here. This particular website is called Cinnamon Spices, and I'll add this again into the wiki so you have a location as to where to grab this stuff. But I want to take you here because I want to show you applets. And you may ask, well, what's an applet? Well, back in the days of like Windows Vista, we used to have the option to put things on the desktop background, whether it was a clock or the weather or the CPU temperature or a variety of other things just to embed on the desktop as an applet that we could run in the background so that way we could have stuff, you know, in focus, whether that's email information or a variety of other things. So this is the actual website where Linux Mint pulls the applet data from. And to access the applet data, we could download these things. We could go through the local share to the command line, and we actually do it that way. But there's really no reason for us to do that. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. What we're going to do is we're going to click on Start, and we're going to look for applets. And we're going to see applets, and we're going to click on that. Now, applets is literally this location here, but inside of the Linux Mint operating system. So if we go to download, if we want to add additional applets to the desktop, we could click on download, and it's going to refresh the cache, and it'll download the available applets. There's about 215, 220 of them. At that point, we could see, all right, so there's the weather one, and it's literally right here. We could see the 247, which is the 247 right there. They link, they're matched. So if we want to download the weather applet onto the system, we could just click install, and it'll download the weather applet to the actual system. Since we have the weather applet downloaded, what we could do now is we could click on Manage, and we can see the weather applet here. And you'll see that there's a little configuration thing. However, you'll see that on this one it's highlighted, and this one it's not. It's blacked out. Perhaps a little difficult to see in this theme, but you can see it. So what I'm going to do is actually click the little button here that says Add. And now we'll see that the weather has updated. There's one in the taskbar, and we have one there. Now, if we go back into Download, we could go and we could look for the CPU temperature. And we could download this one. And once that's downloaded, we'll go back over to Manage. And I'm actually going to click on the weather. I'm going to disconnect that one just for the time being. And I'm going to go to the weather here. And I'm going to go, or rather the CPU temperature, and I'm going to click on Add. So we now have the CPU temperature. Now we could go into the configuration. So we could see how we want to show this. Like maybe we want to show the temperature in Fahrenheit versus Celsius for whatever reason. Now keep in mind, I know that in the US we don't use the metric system. We use the US standard system. But all of the technology stuff is usually in metric. So just keep that in mind. So I'm going to actually close this. I'm going to close this out or minimize that. I'm going to minimize the web page. And I'm going to take a look to see how we could get our applet now connected for our desktop background. So perhaps not so surprisingly, we're missing it. And the reason why we're missing it is because I'm on a VM, right? So the applets show up in the taskbar. That's going to show up down here on the right-hand side as you add an applet to the system. The Desklets, which is also an option, will give you things that you can add to the desktop. And we'll cover that next. But let's see if we could find something that we could add. We did see that we saw the weather down there, so we know that we can add things. Let's take a look to see if there's anything else that maybe we could add in here which would be useful for us. Again, there's hundreds of these things in here, right? So we could go in, we could look for a variety of different things. Maybe we want to do a timer with notification. We download this one and see what we get. Let's go over into Manage. Let's go back up to the top. Here's our timer. Let's add it. So there we go. We get the little stop clock now, or the timer down here in the taskbar. And that's what a applet is. Now look, let's look at a desklet. Okay, so we're going to close the applets out, and we're just going to right-click on the desktop, and we're going to see Add Desklets. So this is what we currently have available. We could do a clock, we could do a digital photo, or we could do a launcher. But if we go into Download, we're going to get a variety of additional things in here that we could add as far as a desklet is concerned. Maybe we want Yahoo Finance information or a simple system monitor. Let's do that. Let's take a look to see what we got on the simple system monitor. If we go back to Manage, we'll click on it again. We'll click on the Add. And there we go. CPU usage, memory, download, update, and then the temperature is not available. Again, because we're not applicable, because, again, we're on a VM. We can't actually connect. But that is our desklet. We can drag it, drop it, move it around. We'll probably even make it smaller if we really wanted to. I don't know if I could do that through here, if I have to do that through here, which is possible. Let's take a look. Yeah, so scale factor, we could actually make it smaller. So there we go, now it's smaller. And this gives us the options to create additional desklets or put things on the desktop that we may find useful or helpful for day-to-day interaction. And that includes things like the radio. I'm sure you could probably add your Spotify stuff to the desktop as well. And you could create a full-on customized experience inside of your Linux system. And these are things that, again, they do kind of exist in Windows, but they never really worked all that well. They do work well in Linux. Not all of them, but most of them work well. And again, you'll see the rating system, the amount of stars. So if you have 0 stars on here, chances are it's going to be a little off or a little questionable. But things that are, high star configuration will give you information straight off on the desktop and are more usable most of the time. So we covered desklets, we covered applets, we covered desktop backgrounds, we covered the themes to change the themes on the system. We covered where all that stuff exists on the web. Let's take a look at extensions. So we're going to close out of our Desklet app right now, and we're going to go back to Start, and we're going to type in extension. So there's extensions. Let's click on that. And we can see out of the box on our Mint configuration, we don't have any extensions installed. Let's take a look at downloads and see what the repository shows us. So this is where we could go to customize how the windows look. And this is kind of fun. So if we wanted to create like a desktop cube, we can. So we could click the download button. Now this may not work correctly inside of a VM, but we'll try it anyway. We could also try, goodness, let's try transparent panels. There's Compiz effects. If you don't know what Compiz is, you could take a look at that, Google it. It used to exist back in the day. It doesn't really exist anymore. It's not a maintained project. You can get the effects now, but the whole Compiz was an amazing thing. So back in the days of Windows XP, this system was able to do amazing things as far as graphic and visual that just blew Windows out of the water. And honestly, I still don't think Windows is caught up. We could also go in here with, here's Burn My Windows, which is kind of neat. That's a cool effect. We could create wobbly windows. Let's try that one. We'll download that as well. Scroll down further in here. So magic lamp effect, we could do that. So we could do back to monitor. We could do a blur overview. Download that. Let's keep looking in here. Desktop icons per workspace. So in Linux, you could create customized desktops per desktop. So in other words, if you have 4 desktops that you're working off of, that's not 4 monitors, that's 4 separate desktops. Think of it as 4 completely separate versions of Windows or 4 user accounts all at once. You could have that and then have different desktops on each one of the windows. So you could have one that looks like what we have here, and then maybe one with the Windows XP theme, all at the same time running. But keep in mind, the more you do of this, the more graphically enriching you make the operating system, the more taxing on your video card it'll be. So if you're going to do gaming on this system, I would suggest against doing any of these things, except for the things that are out of the box configurable. Okay, so let's click on Manage now and go back to where we have now our downloaded system settings, our extensions, and take a look at what they are and what we've chosen. Now, I want to point out before I do this and make it abundantly clear that we are on a generic video driver. And the video driver is required in order for this stuff to work. So this may not function correctly or at all on a VM. So we'll give it a try to see what happens, what works and what doesn't. But if it doesn't work, it doesn't mean it won't work on your machine. It just means it doesn't work in VMware, which is pretty common because VMware can't do 3D rendering. It doesn't, there's no 3D rendering driver. I don't have like the open drivers installed for like Intel driver network or rather video card or the ATI card that's sitting in this machine that's ancient. Those drivers are not supported by VMware, and as a result, this may or may not work. We could give it a shot, but there's no guarantee. Okay, so let's start with the magic light or lamp effect. So if we minimize this without anything, we're going to see that it just minimizes it as it shrinks down into the taskbar. But if we click on this and we hit the add, we look up here, we can actually see our CPU just went hardcore pin. But again, there's only 2 cores on this system, so that's to be expected, right? Let's give it a couple seconds for it to come back down into play to make sure it's actually applied this configuration. We are, however, only using 1.9 gigs of memory to run this entire system. So if we compare that to Windows, think about that. All right, so that took a little while for it. Oh, and then it jumped again. So it took a little while for it to settle down, but it did spike again. We should be okay at this point. So let's take a look. Let's minimize it now with the magic lamp effect and see if it shrinks the way the lamp effect should. And it does. So that does work in VMware, at least this one does. We can take a look at the other ones as well, but that's a pretty cool effect. And again, these are customizations that are free of charge. You could just install them. They're all linked to that particular site. So if we go back to the Cinnamon Spice website here, and we maximize this, we go to extensions, we could see that all the extensions that are available are listed in here. And if you drill down into these things, rather than doing like just the install, and you take a look, it tells you specifically what these do, what the effects are, if there's known issues, how to install it, where to go to give feedback, how to access the GitHub repository where the person actually set it up for, who actually developed it. So you could give, props to people that actually spend the money, or not, I should say money, but it's really the time to put these together and how they work. So definitely check out this particular site. Again, I'll put this inside the repository, inside the wiki, so you can grab it. But this should tell you specifically where you got to go to see and learn in depth more information as to how this stuff works. I'd really like to get the Fire, the Burn My Windows one to work, but my guess is that this won't work just because, again, generic video card, but we'll give it a shot. So I'll enable it. We're going to pin the CPU into resources it never thought possible. And once that settles down a little bit, we'll see if that actually makes any difference. So what that should do is when I click the X up here, it should burn this window into ash. I'm guessing that it's not going to, but we'll give it a shot. Okay, well, I gave it about a minute here to actually do whatever it needed to do. So let's open something. And let's exit out to see if we could burn it. We can't. So the wobbly is still effect. I think that it defaults back to something else installed if it doesn't work. I'm not entirely sure. You can modify or change these in the system settings. So if you go back here into the system settings from the extensions location, you can modify and change how things function in the actual operating system. You can see the backgrounds, the effects, there's the themes. The thing is much like what Windows 11 attempted to do is what Linux, Ubuntu, and Mint already do, which is when you go to the search function and I search for themes, I'm searching inside of the actual system settings directory. That's where themes exists. But you see how much cleaner this is? I mean, I don't click on this. I don't have sub things. It doesn't take me to another location and back me up to a third location, which opens yet a fourth location. And then in order to navigate back to system settings, I got to close all the windows up and then go back into the system settings under the start menu. It doesn't work that way in Linux. It's much easier. If you want themes, you just search themes. And if I click on themes, it just takes me here. And if I need to go back to system settings, I just click the back button. I'm back to wherever I started out as. If I go to themes through the start menu, it's not going to start. It's not going to start the actual system settings panel. It just starts themes. So I don't have anything to go back to that confuses you as to where you are, where you started out from. So as you can see, that's the menu system. And again, there's tons of preferences in here and customizations that you can make to kind of trim or configure this system around how you want it to actually look. So that's basically all you need to know on the Mint system as using it as a daily driver, making it your own system, what you want to use it for, how to do installs, how to do removals, how to create scripts. That should pretty much cover everything that you need to do in order to get the system to configure and install. Now I will add one thing to this, which is printing. If you have a printer like an HP printer or an Epson printer or a, I'm trying to think of what the other one, Canon. If you have a Canon printer, those drivers all work with Mint. It's plug and play. You could even plug the USB directly into the system. It'll find the driver and allow you to print. It works out of the box. You can print to PDF. You can print to a file directly out of the box. You don't need any third-party software to do it. And I know that in Windows, you can now print to PDF. I get that. But this has been able to print to PDF since 2002. You didn't need Adobe PDF. You didn't need Do PDF. You didn't need any third-party software to do it. It was just able to do it. So I would say from a configuration standpoint, from a usability standpoint, yeah, there's going to be some level of having to get used to it. There's going to be some level of annoyance when you first get into it, like, oh, I can't just double-click on this executable to install it. That's going to be an annoyance. But I'll tell you what, it's not going to be annoying when you realize it's not spying on you. You can run it on 2 gigs of memory. You don't need tons of cores of processor. It'll run on 2 cores of processor. You don't need a huge amount of drive space. You do need drive space if you're going to install additional packages. You could customize it to make it look however you want to make it. It's not constantly bombarding you with ads. It's not spying on you. It won't get ransomware the way ransomware exists on Windows. It's not as easy to get a virus. You can get a virus on Linux, but I mean, you gotta try, because you're gonna have to sudo apt get install that virus, or you're gonna have to do the dpkg install package for the configuration in order to install the package. So you're going to have to actually try to infect yourself in order to infect yourself. So in my opinion, it's a better choice than upgrading to Windows 11, especially if you're younger and you want to learn it, or if you're much older and you don't want to spend the money. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think. Now, this was supposed to end here as the fourth installment, but I think I'm going to create another video at some point where we're going to go through installing a customized background. Now, whether that's a Mac background to make this thing look like an Apple, or we decide, you know what, we don't want to do that. We want to attempt to run that SynXP installation package for Windows XP. We could attempt to do that, or maybe we'll do both. And we'll just make like an hour-long video or something to cover that. If that's what you guys want to see, let me know down in the comments. What do you want to customize this as? Do you want to make it look like a Mac? Do you want to crapple? Or do you want to go the other direction and make it look like XP or Windows 10 or Windows 7? Again, let me know down in the comments. I'd be really interested in knowing what you guys think. All right, guys. Thanks for watching.